Good evening, this is Jack from Charting the Markets, and this is the Bigger Picture webinar for the evening of Wednesday, the 30th of July. My disclaimer, do this for educational purposes only. I'm here to share my technical analysis with you. I hope you can take some of what I'm doing, learn from it, transfer it to your own charts. I'm not here to issue trading signals, right? I'm going to be sorting out all membership over the weekend, and I'm going to be starting the paywalls and so on and so forth on the Bigger Picture and crypto on Tuesday. So that means Sunday is going to be the last free one. Okay, we had a really interesting day today. I wrote a post this morning. Hopefully a lot of you read it. And I was talking about the very, very nice trend lines I've got here on SPX and on the Qs. And on Dia, and they're all really, really nice. And this means we've got another inflection point here. I've been waiting for this. I've been looking for this. It didn't expand into the original trend lines that I was looking for, but we got alternate ones, which are very, very nice, beautiful anchors. These are very, very nice setups. Now, this morning, we had breakdowns on SPX and the Qs, pretty much because obviously, the wedges were essentially out of room. Dia was testing support, and because we unexpectedly had a weak day today with a lot of economic data, we had a breakdown today on Dia, so that has now broken down as well. We'll come to IWM, but these are the ones with these three are the ones with the perfect wedges. What I would note as well is that we had an hourly sell signal fixed, and we still have one fixed on SPX, but this has now reached the possible near miss target. The Q1 is therefore the only 60-minute, which is still really outstanding. So great. I've been having a look. It was kind of a flag form today. Gotta say though, it was a mess. Don't have any really good trend lines for it, but it looks like a flag. And actually, if you look at ES now, of course, it's now broken up, and it's getting pretty close to a retest of the all-time high. Now, I just need that to happen in RTH tomorrow. And at that stage, we have our negative divergence on the SPX daily chart back. So anyway, let's just run through this. Obviously, SPX and NDX have been the strongest. NQ's been leading today and has already made a new all-time high. I just need this to last into RTH tomorrow. I'll talk more about the economic data today, which was very interesting and frankly great. So I was delighted. RTY, obviously this is weaker, and this nested double top is starting to break down here. I don't really have any strong feelings about where RTY goes from here, but I would still like to see a new all-time high on the Dow, which we haven't seen, although we have seen a new all-time high on Dia. On YM here, we had a buy signal, it failed, and we're almost down to the double top target for the little one that I had marked out in the pre-market video this morning. I would like to see this head up. Is it essential? No. Apart from anything else, really, I'm only expecting to draw a trace here, and the economic data today we saw actually backs that up. So, because what I've been talking about for a while is how I would like to see equities not fold badly until before the end of the year. I'd like to see a rally that runs into December, and really the real date I've got in mind for where the rubber meets the road is actually May next year, because May next year is when Jerome Powell's term ends. I'm reasonably confident that he isn't going to be reappointed, and that Trump is going to appoint a loyalist who will do whatever he says. Now, at that stage, I'm not expecting the market to be too happy about that. Now, it may be that wiser heads will prevail. Maybe Jerome gets reappointed, or maybe someone sensible gets appointed, but actually I don't think so. And there have been an awful lot of attacks on Jerome Powell. Trump's made it perfectly clear he wants interest rates of 1%, and he does not understand that actually the Fed can't do that. The interest rate, the practical interest rate, what he really wants is to be able to roll over lots of US debt at low interest rates, and the Fed cannot deliver that. Only the bond market can deliver that. And if you remember back to last November when I was talking about, I think November or October, the Fed was, talking about cutting rates by 0.5%. I can't remember whether they did a half or a quarter, but I noted in a post I did then that actually they don't control interest rates. And if they cut interest rates, interest rates go up because their Fed funds rate may have gone down, but the practical interest rate delivered by the bond market has gone up, then there's obviously an embarrassing realization that actually they don't control interest rates. And that's actually pretty much exactly what happened. I think they cut by 0.5%, and bonds went down and yields went up. I think up to 1% at one stage, although it's pulled back a little from that. So really, that was just an illustration of that point. You can't command the bond market to lower interest rates. That's just not how it happens. But Trump doesn't understand that, and that's why he's been giving Jerome Powell such a hard time. And really, if he wants to cut interest rates, he really needs to start making some sort of serious plan to pay down some debt. He doesn't seem to be about to do that. So we'll see. Anyway, DAX and the STX. I'd love to see these retest the all-time high. Obviously, the celebration of the European celebration of the trade deal, which I have to say wasn't that great, obviously, but I think has put off any hard decisions or serious problems into the future. That has not delivered a new all-time high, but if we're going higher afterwards, I don't need that now either. Let's have a look and see at the bigger picture here. Okay, right, so we finally broke the rising support on Dia today, and that's good. We've got a very nice looking level top, and I'm thinking that may well play out. But I was thinking that SPX probably needed another high retest, and it looks like we're going to get that tomorrow. Looking at the daily chart, we've obviously got an RSI 14 sell signal fix. That's getting very close to, brewing. That's getting very close to fixing. And one thing, I'm going to do a post tomorrow or Friday or over the weekend and talk about the daily middle bands. Now, obviously, we saw a break below the daily middle band marginally on Dia today. But that's not really the important one. Dia and IWM have been the weakest on this way up. Really, in terms of daily middle bands, the ones we really need to break and convert to show us that actually this trend up has really finished is actually on SPX and Qs. So obviously we're a long way from even a test of the daily middle band here, but and equally we haven't actually got any topping patterns on either of those at the moment either. So here are Qs, again, well above the daily middle band, but I'm going to be writing about these because these have been, if you have a look, since we broke back over in April, these have been very, very solid support, and they're the main support, really, in my view here. We might get another RSI 14 sell signal brewing here. It's not likely to be a terribly strong one, and I'm not too bothered about it. It's mainly the RSI 5 ones I'm focusing on. On SPX, see a retest of the high here, and we are going to get full-size RSI 14 and RSI 5 sell signals brewing, unless we go down more tomorrow, which, looking at the overnights, doesn't seem that likely. I'm thinking we see the new all-time high tomorrow on SPX and on the Qs, and that gives me the divergence back, and the divergence is what I'm expecting to play out, obviously, in the next move down. Not necessarily the daily RSI 14 sell signals, but certainly the daily RSI 5 sell signals. So let's have a look at IWM. IWM. Now, on the daily chart here, I would just note, hang on. Sorry, it does this sometimes. All right, I would just note that we're getting pretty close to the possible near miss target on the RSI 5 sell signal, but then this has been an awful lot weaker. In terms of the daily middle band, that closed today at 222.61, and we closed slightly below it on IWM. I'm thinking that's going to reject back over tomorrow, but I'm expecting to see more damage below it soon. These have been a bit weaker, but you can see that this has actually held up extremely well over the last few months, and this is actually the first slight closing break we've seen below it. We've seen an open below it that was quickly recovered. We've seen big Pinocchios below, but I don't think we've seen a close below it before. We've just seen an open below it. This, I think, is the first close below it, but it's not a conviction break, and it doesn't matter as much until we start seeing some weakness on SPX and the Qs. But nonetheless, a whole load of negative divergence here. But I am thinking that what we could do is we could do a retracement here, and then I'm thinking if we're going to get more strength, and we had a really good Q2 economic number today, and this is making me think, and obviously inflation's been relatively muted. I'm thinking we could get another few months out of this, and I'd really like to see this continue into the end of the year and possibly into the start of next year and form a larger high. So I've been talking about this for a while. I was very encouraged by the numbers today, and they were suggesting to me that we may well see that, and that would be my preferred scenario, because it also allows a decent finish to the bull market on crypto, which would typically happen at the end of the year. All right, so that's where we are on these. DAX hasn't retested the high yet, obviously. Nikkei hasn't retested the high, but if we're just going to do a retracement here and then go up some more afterwards, then of course those can be done later. So we shall see how that goes. But really, I was most encouraged today. This was the number I didn't think we were going to get, but was really kind of hoping we would, because that is what gives me my rally into the end of the year, and that will give us the best looking setup. Now, one thing I would mention here is ESTX, just an observation here. Let's actually draw this in. But I was thinking this looks pretty close to a channel, and actually it's a bit more than that, I think. Let's just check the lines are right. That's a channel. All right, that is a perfect bull flag. So, just saying, that may well need to play out. So we may be getting that retest of the all-time high after all. Having said that, not all bearish triangles break down, not all bull flags break up, but I think there's a decent chance. We are not that far away from a retest of these highs. I'd like to see it. It would set up a nicer looking double top, particularly on the STX. So we shall see. All right, great. Now, we were seeing some strong stuff on the dollar today. The retest of this low here never happened. This double top failed. We rejected back up to the high, and we've continued higher. I've had a look at this. I was talking about this, and I drew this on the pre-market video this morning, and I think this is an IHS, and it's broken up with the target basically at a retest of this high here, which I think is 101.35. I'm really liking that. And also the other thing which this good economic data has provided is it's provided a potential window for a bull move in the dollar. And ideally, with the overall setup, that bull move would take us back up into a retest of the high, I think at 114.87 or 83. But we'll have a look at that in a minute. In terms of the other currencies, we had a whole load of sell signals and buy signals on the euro, buy signal on GBP, buy signal on Australian dollar, buy signal on NZ, sell signal on USD-JPY and USD CAD. And this was making me think that actually we probably were going to retest that low on the dollar, but we didn't do it. We had a possible flag forming here, but we have broken below it. And it was a nice flag too, but this is a flag which has broken down. And it no longer looks like a flag. It might possibly return to being a flag, but honestly, I think it's broken down too far to probably do that. The sell signal hasn't quite failed. On GBP, it hasn't quite failed either. Does this look like a bull flag? I'm going to go with not really. So really, this is a head and shoulder which is also broken down, which has a target considerably lower and matches the IHS that I've formed, that I've marked in on the dollar. I haven't marked this in, up properly yet. I'll do it tomorrow or at the weekend. So we shall see. Although tomorrow is Thursday, so I'll do it sometime tomorrow, but I've just got a lot on at the moment. Okay, USD-JPY, we've retested this high. This could be the second high of a double top, but I've got nothing really suggesting it's going to. USD-CAD, we had a lovely bearish triangle here, and it broke the other way. This was one of the things which was making me think also that the dollar was going to retest the low, but it didn't. 6-minute sell signals fixed, hasn't failed yet. Australian and dollar and NZ, we had buy signals, both of those failed. Although I've got one brewing again on NZ and another one on Australian dollar. It depends how strong this trend is on the US dollar. It might just carry us through. So we will see how that goes. All right, let's have a look at those on the bigger picture charts. And okay, I've marked in the IHS here, and it's a decent looking IHS, and it's taking us back up into a very obvious resistance area. I've got the resistance up here. This is possible double bottom resistance or a larger IHS neckline, and I've got that up in the 10, basically the 102 area. That is where I'm thinking this is likely to be heading. So if we break up from that, then we'd have a double bottom which could take us significantly higher. But of course, the bigger picture is that we've got this bull flag. We're now testing the weekly middle band. And if we see a break up over it, then we can start making our way back towards the flag resistance. And this is a very nice looking bull flag, and it is underthrown. It's tested the main megaphone support, which of course raises the possibility we could overshoot 114.78 and just head back straight into this trend line, which should be, I don't know, 119 at the moment. I'm not really expecting to see that. I think we'll probably see a reversal, but I am thinking, and frankly, I'm still a little doubtful about seeing a retest of this high here. But that's where the pattern's pointing. And as I said, I will give these things the benefit of the doubt when we've got a strong enough bullish setup, and this isn't a bad bullish setup at all. So I'm giving it a shot. I'm thinking we could get back to 102, pull back a bit, maybe get up into the 107, 108 area, and at that stage, we would be testing flag resistance. And with these economic numbers, I think that's got a shot. We will see how that develops. Obviously, backing that up, we've got a bear flag on the euro. We've got a big bear flag on GBP. Both of these could deliver. I think we get a very impressive opportunity here, because actually, looking at the target here, I'd be looking for a retest this low, set up a double bottom, and go. I'd be looking for the same on the euro. That is where it points to. It points really, the setup points to a retest of that high at 114, 78, I think it said, and for make a marginal new high, set up a double top there, and come down. And that is something I'd quite like to see. I'd like to see the market and the dollar go up this year for the rest of it, and then I would like to see them both come down hard next year. And set up a decent topping setup so that we get plenty of warning. Fingers crossed. Don't always get my wish list, but we'll see. So look, USD JPY. We've got this very nice looking rising megaphone, and I'm thinking we'll go back to 162 and retest this high. Could break up, but this is, I don't really have a good topping pattern for this yet, and this could give us one. So we shall see. How decent would this head and shoulders be? It's not pretty. We could get a far better one by going back and retesting this high at 162, and then we can have a really nice looking double top. USD CAD, we already have a double top, and it's nice, but we can go back and retest the high here, and then we've just got a nested double top. So we'll see how that goes. Australian dollar. Falling channel here. I was still wondering about a possible retest of this low here. And if the dollar's going to see a big move up, then yeah, we could see that. That could set up a double bottom, and actually we could come back and retest this main low here too. Likely they will, if the dollar starts powering up and making towards that retest, we're going to see everything else drop, with the exception of USD CAD and USD JPY, because of course they're written to positively correlate with the dollar. We've still got this triangle forming on NZ, but we pretty much hit resistance here. Maybe we're just returning to the bottom. So that would have a target in the 54.9 area. So we'll see how that goes. Okay, right. Looking at bonds. ZB, we had a head and shoulders here, and it failed. And we had matching head and shoulders on ZN, that failed too. And we had an IHS on TNX, that failed. And we had head and shoulders on TLT, and that failed too. So we had an awful lot of things suggesting that bonds would go down, and they all failed. Now, do we have successor patterns here that suggest we might go lower? Nothing particularly high quality so far, although I'm watching out for it. And it may well be that we're going to do the obvious thing after these fail, which is you head back and retest this high. If we were to see that, I've got that high on ZB and about the, 116.02, 116.03, and we may be heading there. We shall see. All right, looking at the bigger picture charts on those, you can see, obviously we've looked at the ones on ZB and ZN so far. Looking at TNX, we had, we did have we had an IHS which broke up, and that's failed, and we got a possible head and shoulders setting up a move down, and that would be the obvious move back down to retest the low, which would be if you see the rejection of the head and shoulders, the natural target is to come back and retest this low at 42.05. On TLT, head and shoulders, and that's fell too. It fell today. So obvious target would be a return to 88.31. So we shall see. All right, great. Not a lot else to say, really. I was mentioning on TYX when we got up to the 50 area that that's the area at which the Treasury was starting to buy bonds a few months ago, and we'll see how that goes. Oh, and by the way, I've got something else to show you too. I posted on a chart of mine back in April that one of the wait a second. Right, one of the big holders of U.S. Treasuries had apparently made a big shift in early April by selling a whole load of bonds, and this is all of those holders and their holdings at every month. And I think I've identified because there were various talks. It could be, it was talk. It was Japan, it was China, but actually, I think it was Canada. If you look at this here, 406, 426. And this is an unusually large move, which took it all the way down to 368. And where was that for? The end of April. I think the country which sold those, $50 billion worth of US Treasuries, I think that was Canada. I think that's telling the story here. There aren't any really good candidates, so if that happened, it was them. What I would say is, and this is going to be a problem next year, is you can see the amount here. This is 9 trillion being held by foreign trading partners, and that's up almost $1 trillion from a year ago. Why is that? Because obviously the budget deficit is $2 or $3 billion a year. That needs to be solved. That's going to become an increasing problem, I think. It'll be partially offset by tariff revenues, but of course that has consequences too, because most of those tariff revenues will come basically out of the profits of US companies or from the pockets of US consumers. This is not likely to be sustainable, but I think it may well get pushed into next year, and that's where I'd like to see it. So we shall see how that goes. All right, great. Let's have a look at oils now. CLC, we saw a very tiny break of this rising support trend line here, and then we've seen it move up. Kind of looks like a rising wedge, but not a very good one. We had a sell signal here, it failed. We've got another 60-minute sell signal fixed. We've gone up a bit higher since. We could be topping out short term, but not with a great deal of confidence. HO hasn't really made it much off the ground. Gasoline has come a long way up. I'm not quite sure why that is, but that might be something to do with the amount they're refining in stocks and so on. But I have to say, this is the one I'm looking at thinking, that was actually a pretty decent looking setup here, and it went straight through it. And it's up to the 61.8% retracement, slightly over. I'm wondering whether this might be heading back to this high here, although the others don't seem to be at the moment. They may catch up. We shall see. All right, NG. NG has basically continued down. We had the wedge, it broke up, we did partial retracement, we had an opportunity to set up a double bottom, and we didn't take it. It is reversing down. Now, there's something I want to show you there, which is this. This is something I show you every once in a while. And this is basically forward contracts on oil and on natural gas. Now, on oil, this is the usual state of affairs. You find it comes cheaper as it goes out. But natural gas actually gives you an insight into the seasonal pressures here in terms of where these will land. Now, September, you see, which we're in at the moment, is coming up, is moving up here gently. We had a large move up last month, but you can see when we get up into November, December, and January, then we see basically it goes up $1 in 2 months. It goes up $1.30 in 3 months, and $1.40 over the next 4 months. There is quite a lot of seasonal pressure to the upside here, but I have to say, just looking at the TA on it, I'm not really seeing that. There's quite a lot of pressure to the downside, but I'm just tossing that in as a caveat there. It's always worth being aware of the seasonal pressures, and we will find some pressure. And of course, when we roll contracts, you'll find, by the time we're finding the next one's going up 50 cents, then of course to continue going down, it's then got to sell off that 50 cents and continue from there. We will see. Possible 60-minute buy signal brewing at the moment. No obvious challenge to declining resistance. I haven't drawn in an overall pattern here, but that's something I'd draw on the bigger picture continuous chart. All right, let's have a look at those on the bigger picture. All right, looking at oil. Oil, we're back over the daily middle band, and we're back up at the daily upper band. So no current divergence here, apart from the weak RSI 14 sell signal, which hasn't made target yet. But quite often you find we had a we had a weak RSI 5 sell signal fixed here. That made target, but the RSI 14 one hasn't made target yet. Could we be looking at a retest this high here? It's nowhere near as close as it is on gasoline, but I am starting to wonder about it. Looking at heating oil, we actually have a very nice looking bottoming pattern here. I've been assuming it wouldn't play out, but it still could. This really hasn't moved up much from the daily middle band, but I was wondering if it will break below. They haven't done that. CL was the only one which was below for weeks, and that has convincingly moved back above now. Looking at gas oil, kind of looks like a flag forming. But the next obvious target within that flag would actually be flag support down here in the 188 area, or 189 area, actually. Could we be seeing a retest of the high? Yes. Could that be the second high at all top? Marginal. Probably a little big for that, to be honest. So watching this with interest, but I was a bit surprised to see, well, I'm not quite sure. Obviously, we've still got unrest in the Middle East, but at the moment, that seems to be down. Iran is obviously on its back at the moment, and a lot of its proxy war agents have gone. So at the moment, peace is kind of breaking out everywhere except actually in Ghana. So we'll see. All right, looking at the bigger picture on oil, we've got a wedge here that's broken up, and I've been looking for a reversal pattern. Could this be that reversal pattern? Yeah, I think it could. There's a really bullish scenario here, which is worth mentioning, and that is, I'm just going to draw it in for you. And that is, hang on, that is that actually we've been forming an inverted head and shoulders. That would be the neckline over here. And actually, it's not bad. I'm not seeing much reason for oil to be going up here, but in terms of, is there a setup? Yeah. It's not awful. We've got a left shoulder low here at 65.27. We've got one here at 64. Could this head back up to 78.4? Yes. Where would the target be on a break up from that? Hang on. I'll tell you. That is. It wouldn't be small. Let's see exactly where it goes. Okay, if we were to see a breakout from there, I'd be looking for a target about the 102 area, although obviously it might be one of those where you see a breakup and it fails back into the low. But that is a potential bullish setup here, which I've had in mind on the W-tick chart, and well, I've still got it in mind. We shall see how it goes. All right, let's have a look at natural gas on the bigger picture. Now, natural gas, we had a double bottom that broke up here, and frankly, at the moment, it looks like it's failing. Now, if it fails, and there's no actual area where it would fail, where you can say, this double top has failed in this area, because we don't have a level like the left shoulder low and right shoulder lows on the inverted head and shoulder patterns. But if this does fail, then the target would actually be back at a retest of this low. How credible are our chances of making that? Hang on, wait a second. Well, do we have a head and shoulders here? I've got to go with no. Not really. But we do have an overall rising megaphone here, which looks pretty good. And I am wondering about a move down into the megaphone support. Could that be a bear flag on the bigger picture? And the answer to that would be yes, it could. Because that flag, hang on, wait a second. 4.59. All right, that's running from the beginning of 24, really. That flag, I'm just going to draw that in on this chart here, and you can see what I'm talking about. Now, as I said, there's a bit of a headwind here. As we work through the summer, of course, we're getting closer to winter. When we get to winter, then we have a cyclical up period in terms of natural gas coming, and obviously that may well deliver. But where would that pattern be? It would be here. That would be the megaphone. And this would be support on it here. We'd be heading down to this trend line here in the 2.4 area, and if that broke down, yes, that could be said. That could be a bear flag setting up a retest to low. So I'm watching that with interest, and I'm thinking that may well be the way it's going. Certainly, it's shown absolutely no interest in moving up to this. It could. I've seen retracements like this, and then they make a target, but I'm looking at that. I'm a bit doubtful about that, and I'm not seeing much sign of that at the moment. So we shall see. All right, now we had a pretty interesting day on metals. Now I was talking on Sunday about the possibility we might see more downside on gold. We have seen that. Where's the obvious target? Retest this low here in the 3250 area would be the obvious next place. And at the moment, I'm not seeing much reason to think that we're not going to make that. We've got a 6-minute buy signal fix, where we obviously dropped quite a bit after doing that. Looking at silver, we've actually, the double top I've been talking about has actually broken down. That's got a target in about the 35.4 to 35.6 area. And I'm thinking that may well make that target. It's certainly a very nice looking double top. Looking at palladium, we saw a weakness across the board on precious metals today. Do we have a topping pattern here? Not really. Possible head and shoulders forming, maybe. But on platinum, we had a head and shoulders, and that broke down. And that made target very suddenly today in a couple of hours. But that was nothing compared to what happened on copper. Copper, I've been talking about this as a double top, and I was favoring it being a double top, but I was not expecting it to make a target like this. This was basically, it's come down, it spiked up, and then boy oh boy, it came down. And actually, in one move, really, it's come down. God, that is a lot. It's come down, what, 20%? That really is impressive. Why has it come down that much? I don't know. But certainly this double top that I've been talking about for a while definitely made target. Let's have a look at the bigger picture charts on this. Okay, let's have a look and see. All right. Okay, looking at copper, obviously that was a bit of a collapse there. Now, I've got a decent looking megaphone here that looks like a bearish overthrow, so I'm wondering if we're going to head down to this megaphone support, which I've got in the 4.05 area, and we made much of the distance to that today. If we do, and we see it break down, then we can see a return to that. Is this a bear flag? No, because this is a significant high. Looking at the bigger picture, could we see a breakdown from here and then a return to these lows here and this rising support trend line, which is currently in the 2.4 area? Yeah, maybe. We will see how that goes. But obviously on the continuous chart, this wasn't a nice looking double top. Doesn't matter at this stage because it's already made the target on the current contract. But this isn't convincingly bearish. But I'm certainly expecting copper to be affected by the tariffs. And as far as I'm aware, those tariffs are still on. Okay, looking at gold. Gold, we've got an RSI 14 sell signal fixed, and that hasn't made target yet. We've got a nice looking bullish triangle, which is trying to break down. Now the question is it going to continue to break down, or is it just a messy triangle? If it's going to continue breaking down, then this could go significantly lower. Looking at the bigger picture, I'm still expecting to see a retest this high. And this still looks like a bullish consolidation. Looking at silver, obviously we made some pretty serious resistance to 29. I've been talking about the possibility that might hold. We've gone a little over it, but not much. And we've got a nice looking double top, which is breaking down. Now, in terms of that, that may well make the targets, but I'm skeptical about it making a really serious move down until gold has retested that all-time high at the least. We shall see how that goes. Looking at palladium, this is the first significant weakness we've seen on this for a while. We didn't quite make it to my resistance trend line, which was annoying because I didn't really have an alternative for it. But I am wondering if this might be returning back down. Overall, this whole thing could be a bear flag. And because overall, this entire move, dramatic as it has been, pales into insignificance compared to this move down that we saw from 2022 to 2024. This was just actually a modest rally on the bigger picture. Looking at platinum, this was a less modest rally, and we've actually got back to the 50% retracement to this huge high that we had in 2008, and we've retraced half of that now. Could this be a bear flag? Yes, it could. It could be a very, very big bear flag. So I'm watching this with interest. Ideally, we'd make a retest the high, get some negative divergence. We will see how that goes. But copper, well, that was a dramatic down. This could be the start of a much, much larger decline. Looking at GDX, we've got a possible double top here. No current sign of it breaking down. GDXJ kind of looks like a flag, but if so, it probably hasn't reached support. I'd be looking for support in the 64 area. All right, let's have a look at the KC chart. KC chart, I think this is a bearish consolidation. Do I have any decent flag setups here? I got to go with no. Could this be a triangle forming? Not a nice one, no. But I think overall this looks like bearish consolidation before we see a retest of this low. Sugar, this could still be an IHS, and it could still be a nice IHS, but it would need to start making tracks towards the neckline sometime soon, and it hasn't been doing that in recent days. 60-minute buy signal has reached the possible near miss target. CC, we saw an IHS which broke up towards the 9900 area, and at the moment I'm wondering if it might fail. I have helpfully drawn in the failure point here, which is the right shoulder low, and if we get below that, then the IHS has failed and we may well just return back to the lows. CT, we had a bearish triangle here, and this one behaved and did what it was supposed to do and broke down. The obvious target for this would be a retest of this low here at 66.25. Is that a firm target? Not in the same way that a head and shoulders and double top would be, no. But certainly I'm thinking that's the obvious next place to go. Lumber, this isn't a larger double top. This is a continued move up. Do we have an obvious resistance trend line here? Not really. I'll show you. I've got more to say about this on the daily chart, but we're actually getting into rarefied territory here. CW, I've been leaning towards the short side. We've got a 6-minute buy signal that's fixed. That hasn't really made a difference so far. I am expecting to see at least somewhat lower, and I'll show you why on the daily chart. Corn, we made the head and shoulder target. We haven't quite made it to the obvious retest of the low, which I've got at 407.5. I'm thinking that will be made. Soy has made the target down here, and it's pretty much made the full extended target as well, rather than the main target, which is just the retest of this low. No current sign of divergence. Again, I'm leaving to seeing a bit lower. Soybean oil, we retested this high. We've got a nice looking double top, and I'm thinking that might start playing out. Although I would note that I've got trendline resistance getting increasingly close to the double top support, so they may well act as double support when they're reached. Live cattle is just in an uptrend here. No particular sign it's going to reverse. Lean hogs, we tested the megaphone resistance. We pulled back, and that certainly confirmed the megaphone. Waiting to see if this is a bull flag setting up a retest this high, but this could be alternatively heading back into a retest of the low. We shall see. All right, let's have a look at the big picture charts on those. All right, looking at lumber. Lumber has actually made it back up, all the way back up to the retest this high. This could be the second high of a double top. Be a little large for it, and obviously it would need to reverse sometime soon. Do we have any promising looking negative diversions? Not on the daily chart, we don't. We could set up some, but none at the moment. None on the weekly chart either. Overall, this does look like a bear flag forming low, and these highs, high as they look on the short term, don't look terribly high on the longer term. All right, looking at coffee. Coffee, retest the low, could set up a double bottom, and actually could set up some very nice positive divergence on the daily RSI 5. It does look as though we're probably going to see that next. And holding the daily middle band as resistance, which it's been doing, and failing from it is a pretty encouraging sign. We may well see that retest the low next. Sugar, we've got this apocalyptic setup here, looking for a move down to 6.5 to 9 area, but in the short term, this isn't looking bad for a move up. We will see whether it can deliver one. Weak RSI 14 buy signal fixed. The RSI 5 buy signal has already made target, and we didn't have any positive divergence on the weekly chart. Looking at cocoa, cocoa This is fairly richly valued by historical standards, and I'm thinking this may well continue down. We will see how that goes. On wheat, I'm leaning towards seeing a retest of the 499 area and ideally the 495.5 area. We're still some distance away from that. On corn, I'm leaning towards seeing a retest of 385 and maybe a retest of 307.25. The difference would be that if we found support here at 385, this would make a very nice looking level top. This was a bear flag. We pretty much retested the lows. I'm expecting to see the full retest, and then we see whether or not this might be a double bottom. It would be a pretty nice looking double bottom. This would be double bottom resistance, and this could deliver quite a large rally. We'll see. I've got a possible RSI 14 buy signal brewing, hasn't fixed yet. All right, looking at soy, I've been saying for months this looked like a bear flag, and we're now testing bear flag support. The obvious thing to do is to break down and retest the prior low, which was 936.06. If you look close up here, we've actually broken the flag support, so I'm really expecting to see that retest from 936.06. It is the obvious target. Do we have positive divergence here? Not on the daily. And not on the weekly either. But I would have thought we may well generate some by the time we reach 936.06. This is actually, in terms of, this is the wedge that hadn't broken up, of course. We did break up slightly over it at the high here. So break up, retest the low. This is the way an awful lot of double bottoms form, and I'll be watching out for that. Looking at cotton, we've got, we've seen a test basically of the wedge resistance, and we could be seeing a full reversal back into retest this low to set up a smaller double bottom, the very nice one we've already got. Really, I'd like to see this reverse back up, but obviously, looking at the hourly chart, this is a pretty convincing setup to see a full retest of this low. So my lean would be that we're probably going to see that. All right, looking at lumber. Lumber, as I said, looks like a bear flag. Made a higher high. This might give me a decent flag trend line, which I haven't got yet. We will see where this lands, but in the short term, this could be the second high of double top. And actually, if one's looking at, in terms of this low here at 35250, this wouldn't actually be a huge double top. So actually that would look pretty decent. We shall see. All right, I'm just going to cover crypto quickly here. Now, crypto, this is something, now if we are going to see an extension higher on the markets and the market moves last into the end of the year, this gives crypto the chance to do what I would like to see it do. And what would I like to see it do? I would like to see Bitcoin go higher. Do I have a target for that? Yes. I've got this trendline resistance up here, and I've got this currently at about the 140 to 145k area. I would love to see it head higher and do that. Looking at Solana, do I have an obvious target higher? Not really. I don't really have a pattern set up here that I can see suggesting a target. I could come up with a couple, but they wouldn't be high probability. I am thinking that we have seen a IHS break up here. That's got a target up at a retest of the all-time high at 295.95, or at least close enough that I'd be looking for that target. I'd be looking ideally for it to make that, go somewhat higher, and then fell. Because really, in terms of the sequence here, I'd be looking in December, I'd be looking around for the bull market high. And if equities can hold up still then, given that we've still got currently pretty much no evidence that crypto can go up when equities aren't going up, that would fit with that quite pretty well. Looking at Ethereum, obviously, I'd love to see a retest of the all-time high at 4865.94. Now, we've almost made the IHS target here. Main target is at 4109.05. Extended target would get us up into about the 4400 area, and that's getting us within striking distance of the all-time high. I would love to see a new all-time high. I was thinking we might not get one, but Ethereum has been outperforming recently, and I think this got a shot. So that is what I would like to see. Short term, we do have a daily RSI 14 sell signal brewing here, I think. What's the daily chart? Oh, here it is. Right, okay. We've got a possible weak RSI 14 sell signal brewing, and we've got an RSI 5 sell signal fixed. If we're going to see a retracement on equities, chances are we'll see some kind of retracement matching it on on crypto. And while I think we're still probably in the topping process for a retracement on equities, I think it's pretty soon. It's probably not going to go much higher. And I think if we can see a retest of the current high on Solana, which would be 206.40, that will set us up, or at least it should set us up. Yeah, it would still set us up, as long as we don't go too much lower. But it's still trying to hold the daily middle band at the moment. But as long as we go too much lower, that would set up a very nice looking RSI 14 sell signal. And these have a pretty good record of making targets. So we could do a decent, set that up, do a decent retracement, and then continue higher. As long as we don't get below 126.09, because that would fail the double top. Sorry, fail the IHS pattern. We shall see how that goes. All right, great. In that case, I think it's a wrap. I'll catch you guys again on Sunday. And I've got to say, it's been an interesting couple of days. Tomorrow, we've got the inflation data, and we've got the jobs data on Friday. We will see how they come in. But if we're seeing strength in the US economy, then that is supporting my preferred market scenario for the rest of the year. And that is what I would like to see. We'll see how that goes. All right, great. In that case, that's a wrap. I will catch you guys again on Sunday.